This is the Allon Exchange, retirement planning solutions for you, brought to you by Jay and Brittany Hagy. They are the founders and financial advisors of Allon Planning Partners right here in Tennessee. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Jay and Brittany, I'm always excited to be in the studio with you, but I've got to ask you, what's on your mind this week?
What's on our mind this week? This week, we want to talk about the difference between proactive and reactive strategies when it comes to our finances. Because so many people come in and sit down with us as a reaction to some problem they faced in their life or some transition, which that's good, that's okay. But we want to encourage folks to take a proactive approach, to be proactive and not just come in or look at their finances in a moment of crisis.
Right. Being prepared for all of the situations. So folks, on today's program, it's not just about your investments. We talk about being proactive with your taxes, being proactive about Social Security choices down the road, being proactive with your health care choices down the road, including things like long-term care. But of course, it does include your investments. Do we want to start in that lane?
We can, because, you know, behavioral finance is a great place to start, because a lot of times when we react, we just utilize emotion. We're reacting out of emotion, not based off of a set of plans that we've come up with to determine how we're going to react. That's called being proactive, right? And so we want to keep our emotions in check when it comes to investing. We want to make sure, because we can be all over the place if you don't know how your funds are going to respond in different circumstances, and you don't know how you need them to respond. You can have very bad reactions if the market goes down 10% and you lose money, or the market goes up and you're very emotional and having high hopes, and you say, let's put the rest of the money at risk because everything's going great, and you're having an emotional experience that way. We want to be less reactive but more proactive in our financial planning approach, and it's really to keep those emotions in check.
Yeah, I was going to say here, and the reason behind that is because oftentimes when we're driven by those emotional responses, very often are they positive. Right, they're often negative. I mean, this is a concept that applies to all of life. Think about it with your kids or your grandkids. When they disobey or disrespect you, or are rebellious, or whatever the case may be, don't do what they're supposed to do, and you know, maybe they smart off, and in a moment you're heated, and you have to either have predetermined, hey, when this happens, because I know it's going to happen, right? They're going to disobey. They're going to smart off. Well, I have to have predetermined how I'm going to respond, or the other option is to allow my emotions to dictate my response, which 99% of the time is not good. The same with our finances. If you're in the heat of a moment, whether it's a market dip like Jay was referring to, or maybe a job loss, or God forbid the death of a spouse, something like that, where you have to face your financial situation, the emotions can tend to just overtake and cause you to make oftentimes pretty irrational decisions. And those irrational moves can be avoided by proactive planning and taking a proactive approach.
And from my point of view, the many years that we have done this together, I know you do your radio program and I know you do live events, is that having a plan with your partner, yourself, and your financial advisor helps you avoid making those emotional decisions. Meaning, yes, I saw the market go down 20% over the last few months. But you call your advisor and you say, where are we at? We're still on track. It's a little messy right now, but we're still on track. Or this person is coming into office. Look, we got to address it. We know we're going to go through this election cycle garbage, and it's whichever side, it's going to be a lot of noise out there. Do we react to the elections, or do we keep focus on our family plan?
No, when it comes to the clients that we serve, we're going to take a proactive approach, and we're not going to react to all of the messiness that comes along with those kind of cycles, right? Because we have put together a comprehensive financial plan, which we often refer to as a SWAN plan. It's called a sleep well at night plan for a reason. It's a SWAN plan. We're going to sleep well through the turmoil and craziness that the markets bring and the political environments bring and everything else, because we have a plan with each bucket of our money that is dedicated for a certain purpose that we are putting behind it. It's goal-based planning. So when folks come in, we're going to intentionally walk you through steps that are going to take proactive choices to say, we're going to let your money work in this way. or that way, or this bucket of money is for emergencies. We don't want to take any volatility risk with this. We want to keep it completely safe. This money is for legacy planning. We've got 20 years before we have to use it. We can take a little bit more risk with that. We're not worried about, oh my goodness, I can't pay my electric bill because of the way the markets are reacting. You need to take a proactive approach and have a plan for each bucket of money based on the purpose that you have for that money.
And to that point too, that's what Allon really means. That is why we named Allon Planning Partners, Allon Planning Partners, because Allon is the Hebrew word for oak tree. And that is just a symbol of stability. It's deep rooted. And Allon actually came from a passage of scripture that talks about the streams that are, the tree that is planted by the streams of water. And it's able to have its life sustained and actually produce fruit even in seasons of drought.
All seasons.
Because it is so deeply rooted and it can draw its source from the water, right? And it can remain alive and vibrant even through tumultuous times.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of comprehensive plans that we craft. Plans for every season that can operate when the market's crazy, when we're in the middle of an election cycle, when there's a job loss, or when COVID hits, right? All of these things that catch us by surprise in life, your financial plan should be able to weather those storms.
Yeah.
You should have a comprehensive approach, and that's what Allon is. That's what we do.
And there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure that are listening right now that are tired of the reactive mentality. That you're tired of every time the news comes on that you're having to figure out, how am I going to make it this month?
Try that.
If that's you, if you're in a position to where you're tired, give us a shot. That's why we created this book right here. We want to come in and put you on a path to a proactive planning cycle that says, what is the approach that we want to take with the buckets of money that you have, so that you do not have to have a reactive mentality and live in fear and live in dread and live in, I've got to keep my head in a bucket because I can't hear all the noise that's happening around me and react to every news cycle that hits. No, we want you to have a proactive plan so that you absolutely understand in all environments the buckets of money that we place and how they're going to operate and how they're going to perform. And you can sleep well and better at night having a proactive choice in your investments.
We're going to take a very short message break. And what I want to tell the viewers out here is that you can be proactive about your retirement planning. Folks, this is so simple. All you've got to do is call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. You set up an appointment. You're going to come into the office with Jay and Brittany, and we will be proactive about planning for you. What is that great marketing phrase that they say? If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. Why don't you change the conversation and take control of it for your own retirement? Call the phone number you see down on the bottom of the screen. When you come in, we'll give you a complimentary copy of their new book, The Allon Approach, which will talk about the different ways that they're proactive about retirement planning. Or if you'd like to be real simple, because I know most of you are out there also scrolling on your phones while you're watching this, open it up to the camera function. Point it at the QR code and click on it. It's going to take you right over to the website. You can schedule an appointment right there. More of the Allon Exchange right after this.
Allon means oak tree, and when we began this firm 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that, we were searching, trying to determine what do we really want to build this foundation on? How do we want to depict and share this mission that we have with the world? What does this look like?
And so as we were processing through what should be the grounding factor, the name of our company, Allon really stood out. It's actually the Hebrew word for oak tree.
And we knew that the oak tree was going to be the symbol for what we are, how we operate, because those are the kinds of financial plans we want to create.
And so Allon comes from the Psalms, where it talks about the tree that is planted by the water that has deep roots, that even in times of drought, this tree can sustain life, and it bears fruit in every season.
That really became the foundation and the mantra of our firm. Why we do what we do, who we are, how we operate.
We want to create plans for people with deep roots that even in times of turmoil it hits their life. Maybe it's a death in their family. Maybe it's another financial crisis. Maybe it's COVID, and something that we can't even see coming. But the roots are so deep that they bear fruit in all seasons because we have a plan for every season of life.
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange with Jay and Brittany Hagy. Today we're talking about how you can be proactive about your retirement planning. We talked about it theoretically. Now I want to ask you some real case scenarios. Folks who come into the office, where do we want to start with being proactive versus reactive?
Yeah, so let's talk through a few examples of some scenarios that we've seen and the differences between a proactive and a reactive approach. One that we have seen quite frequently recently has to do with gifting money to kids. So that's a scenario we all want to give to our kids. That's just something we want to do, right? And some people can take it to one extreme or to the other and say, you got to earn everything you have, or or hey, I'm going to give you everything on a silver platter.
Everything.
Those are the extremes, right? So if you're reactive in this approach, you really kind of just respond with a sense of obligation or pressure, or if there's a need, you meet it, or if they want this toy, you go buy it immediately, right? Or whatever it is, which gets more and more expensive as your kids and grandkids get older, as you are well aware. So
the toys end up being sometimes, I need help with that wedding.
That's
I need help with the down payment on the house.
That's right. Big things. Yes. And so that would be the reactive approach, feeling responsible to maintain their lifestyle, right? Because they pull on your heartstrings maybe. But a proactive approach would be to do that within healthy boundaries, to establish healthy boundaries. Say, absolutely, we want to give, we want to support and offer help when there's a crisis or a real need, or we want to go on a trip and gift a trip to you, or whatever it is that you specifically want to do for your kids. But establishing what healthy boundaries should be around
before
that.
a crisis moment.
Before the moment comes where your heartstrings are pulled on, or where there's a need. So if they need a new tire on their car because it blew, and they're maybe in a period without a job, and something's going on and you need to step up, you've got funds set aside to help in those emergency moments if you so choose, right? So again, just knowing how you're going to respond before presented with the opportunity.
Would you also say this is within caution of not letting it affect your own retirement plan first?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when it comes to things like weddings, down payments on the house. As
Absolutely.
you said, vacation, nice, this is something we want to give, but if they're not, we don't want to be enabling. We want to help when, they need a helping hand.
Well, and understanding first, there's a reason that they tell you on an airplane to put your mask on before you help someone else. If it is hurting your income and your ability to pay your bills, as reactive as you want to be, you have to help yourself before you can help someone else. And that's proactive approach in your income planning and things like this. So we want to make sure, like Brittany said, it's within healthy boundaries that we're giving to our kids, our grandkids, or whatever it is, without our own detriment, like I said, within those boundaries, and appropriately so that you're not enabling the next generation.
Can I ask you guys one from my perspective on
yes, go for
proactive,
it.
if you don't mind? Because I've heard my mom and dad say this joke a little bit too much a little bit recently. I don't know if I'm actually part of the sandwich generation yet. But the sandwich generation being those who are working, they're getting older, they've got kids that they're taking care of, and then their older parents who they're worried about as well. And I've heard my folks joke around, well, we took care of you when you were younger, so you'll be able to take care of us later. And that actually creates a lot of anxiety inside me, because I'm like, I'm still saving for my retirement. I know what long-term care costs. Are you proactive with couples about planning for their health needs later?
You have to be. That is a one of the top things that we discuss when we sit down with folks. Healthcare is among the top needs, because if you are not planning for healthcare in retirement, long-term care, medical care, healthcare, you are missing out, and you are really putting an obligation on family members to do that. Now, I have my own family. We have walked through this with my own grandparents, and our family, we will always step up and help. We're going to help our families as they navigate through this. But we, again, I'm talking proactive versus reactive. A reactive approach would be, we'll just figure it out when we get there. That's what a reactive approach is. If something happens, we'll just figure it out. Proactive approach would say, hey, here are some options. Here are my options when it comes to healthcare. Here are a few things that I might could do or how I could take care of these expenses. Do we need to sell the house? Do we need to, set more aside monthly so we have a larger bucket specifically for healthcare? Do I need some kind of long-term care coverage or what? There's
right.
so many options, right? It's determining what's right for you. And that's when you're being proactive, is when you're looking ahead and saying, hey, when something like this does happen, and to most of us, we will face some kind of medical moment that's unexpected.
Right.
So it's not if, but it's when.
And I can also understand it's obviously not fun necessarily to talk about this, but I've been discovering myself kind of a newer tool, a hybrid version. I'll say the word annuity so you two don't have to. But there are things now that have long-term care riders, a different tool. But then if I don't need that, then I can use it for different kind of income later. Or how do you feel about
there
these
are
kind
plenty
of
of options, right? The one option that everybody knows about is buying long-term care insurance, and that can be expensive and burdensome, and it's a use it or lose it kind of mentality, right? Like, it's great. It's like, car insurance. I hope I don't need it, but if I need it, it's there. And all the premiums that I've paid have will go towards to the car insurance company, and I'll never receive those back if I never use them. That is what traditional long-term care insurance does. There are plenty of other options with annuities that are good, that have riders on them, that if you need that money, sometimes they even double the income that's going to come out to you in order to pay for long-term care situations. There's also IULs that are individual life insurance policies that if you need the money pre you being deceased before you die, you can actually utilize some of those funds for long-term care. So it's not a use it or lose it type of bucket. We explore every option when it comes to long-term care. We look at the cash that you already have amassed, and maybe we can find a tax-efficient way to utilize the cash that you've saved for that. Maybe it's rental properties, maybe it's an IUL, maybe it's annuities, but there are tons of ways that you can get creative in this space to be proactive. And Abraham Lincoln, he said it best: you cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today.
Right.
You have to think about this. You have to be proactive. You evade the responsibility today and think, well, tomorrow will take care of itself. You have to look into this, and this is where we come into play, and we want to show you more options than you probably realize are out there.
Right.
We actually have a client who is facing this in this very moment. They've come to us because of a medical emergency, because they have found themselves in a scenario where their spouse needs some significant medical care and they don't know what to do. They don't have a plan for it. And so we're working with them to create that, to craft that solution. And we're helping them come up with that solution. But it is so much harder to do it that way.
In
get
the
it
moment.
after.
It is.
After.
Not to mention the emotions that you're going through and then having to deal with, how do I make ends meet on top of that, right? Not having to deal with all that at the same time.
And we know that
planning.
we love that spouse and partner, but how quickly will we erode through our own life savings? $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, sometimes $10,000 a month, depending on the
right.
care. So we definitely want to be proactive on this. Folks, if you call the phone number on the screen here, we really like to be proactive about our retirement planning. I will say this as well, though. If you are in your 50s watching the program, it's time to be proactive. If you're in your 60s, it's definitely time to be proactive. Or if you've already retired and you're not sure if you have a plan at all, it's okay. We will proactively take a look at what you're doing right now to see if you can be and stay retired. Call the phone number you see right down here on the bottom of the screen. When you come in, not only will we do a complimentary appointment, probably do another one after that, but you'll also get a complimentary copy of their brand new book, The Allon Process, exactly how they do it. You'll get tools and tips, and there's actually worksheets that you can work on together with your spouse there. Call the phone number you see right here. We'll be right back after this.
You have to have a plan. From what I found, we call it the Sleep Well at Night plan, the SWAN plan.
Yeah, a comprehensive plan is extremely important for individuals, families, couples, anyone who is working with their finances. You've got to have more than just an investment.
If we have a plan and know that we can follow step by step a plan that's going to get us to our ultimate goal, we can have trust in that plan to anchor us in those tumultuous times.
And so we're able to really show them, hey, there's all these other things that really come into play.
So it's real important for us to really create those unique plans for people. And it's not just like, well, my neighbor's doing this, so I'm okay.
You got to think about your taxes. You got to think about your health care. You know, you got to think about a number of things that really impact the whole of your financial situation, especially for couples. And we talk about this a lot, that at minimum, both spouses should at least be informed.
Ultimately, we want everyone to not just, be wandering through life and hope that they make it to the goals that they have. We want to put a written step-by-step plan together so that you actually know how to get to those financial goals. Because if you don't have a plan in place to get you through some of those times and you don't have financial security, that's something else that is added to that stress level that can push you overboard.
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange with Jay and Brittany Hagy. They are the founders of Allon Planning Partners. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Right before the break, I was talking about the book. I missaid it. It is the Allon approach, how we want to get ourselves to and through retirement. It starts with planning. It starts with proactive planning, and that's what we're talking about. Let's get proactive about our debt. I think we hear this a lot. It's good to get into retirement as debt-free as possible.
Sure.
Credit cards, right now we're seeing credit card balances go up and up and up. Massive right now. But then we also hear about the real estate. I want to pay off my home as soon as possible. I've got this lump sum savings, only got a couple years left. Maybe we can pay this off. Is that what you mean, totally debt-free into retirement?
Well, we want you to be as debt-free as possible without robbing yourself, okay? And so that's what we want. We don't want to be, like you said, house rich and cash poor either. We have to balance this, and you need a good financial professional, someone that can be a mirror and good advice to you to say, what's the difference between good debt and bad debt? Because there is such a thing. We don't like debt. We don't want to be in debt. If at all possible, be out of debt before you retire.
Yes.
But there are plenty of cases where that's not the case on some folks' homes. And we can still help them put a plan in place to get out of that debt over a certain amount of time. But you should not ruin your retirement savings to pay your house off in most cases, because a lot of folks have really low interest rate loans and they don't need to rob themselves or their future selves in order to get out of that debt right now. And so we want to try to help be proactive. And here's some good debt and that we want to still pay off, but most of it, the debt, let's be debt free and let's put a strategy in place to get you there the most efficiently.
Well, especially when we're talking about consumer debt, right? Credit card debt, and that's bad debt. That's awful debt. And we want to attack that and get rid of that as soon as possible. Because every month that you are not saving for your future, it's not just the money you're not putting in, but it's the money you're not putting in plus the compound interest that you could be earning over time. So talk about really losing out. It's not just, I didn't put in a couple $100 this month. No, it's I didn't put a couple $100 of the compound interest over the next 10 years, 15, 20 years, whatever it is where you are, right? So you got to look at it that way.
Right. Let's also talk about being proactive with taxes. On another program, you did talk about it, but I'd like to at least address it in this show. Taxes, it sounds like, in your opinion, aren't just about April 15th.
It's not. And so many people think taxes is just about, what do I owe? There's a difference between paying taxes and planning for taxes. If you're looking at what do I owe April 15th, you're paying taxes. But planning for taxes is looking ahead, looking at how your investments today, how you're saving for retirement today, how you're spending today will impact subsequent tax years. So 5 years, 10 years down the road, even when you begin taking RMDs, all that goes into that that is tax planning.
Would you say that the reactive part of taxes is doing nothing? Sitting back right now and just waiting for the tax brackets to be
a reactive approach to taxes is just paying your tax bill.
Whatever comes to you.
Right? It's just, it's not looking at, hey, how can I minimize taxes? It's just being reactive and reactively signing the check or sending the electronic funds transfer, paying whatever is owed, right? Proactive is very different.
It's finding every opportunity that you can minimize your tax bill, not only this April 15th, but April 15th, 2035.
Yep.
10 years from now, 12 years from now, whatever it may be, it's minimizing your tax bill today and going forward. That's being proactive. It's putting together Roth conversion strategies like we talked about on another show, and that's more to go into than we have time for. But it's putting strategies in place that says, how do I not only minimize what I'm paying today or just not worry about it, but how do I minimize my future tax bills?
I heard you on one of your radio shows over the last few weeks. You also said something about being proactive about the hidden tax.
Yep, the hidden tax.
The hidden tax.
It's a
Hidden
big
tax is inflation. Many people don't consider the impact of inflation and don't even consider how that could really eat away at their retirement savings.
Well, we saw it last year and the year before. You had 8-9%.
8-9%
Yeah.
inflation.
And
High.
some people say, the reports are that inflation has come down. I don't know. We still
I
say
haven't
we go to
felt it
grocery
that
stores
much.
and gas stations.
Yeah,
haven't
I
seen
go to
it.
the grocery store and man,
pretty high.
it's not down.
Yeah,
And
things are still
things
pretty
aren't-
high.
Aren't lowering.
But we
how do you-
have
how
to
do you get
have a
proactive?
proactive response. And a lot of times it's how our current dollars are allocated right now. Are we setting too heavily in a cash position? Are we worried about the volatility so we're losing money to inflation and our purchasing power for tomorrow because we are so risk adverse,
That's
right?
a
We've
big one.
handcuffed ourselves.
Yep, that's a
There are
big
plenty
one.
of ways but we also have to plan with our financial plans going forward, including 4 to 5% inflation every year on top of the dollars that we're saving that we're going to have to spend. Your dollar today is not going to have the same value as your dollar tomorrow. It's just not. Inflation is the hidden tax that erodes our purchasing power over time, and we have to include that in our financial planning for those dollars.
Would you say that's part of putting together a spending plan, not the budget?
A spending
'Cause
plan.
I don't control what the grocery store is going to cost or the gas station is going to cost, but if we're mindful of what these costs are, we can try to control that a little bit.
That's right. And I mean, I love this quote by Jim Kress. It says, if we try to control the things we cannot control, we will then be controlled by our lack of control. Because
true.
we're trying
say all this
to
again, yeah.
control things that we can't control. It just sends us into a tailspin.
Can you say that again for those of us who went to state schools? What was that again?
If we try to control the things we cannot control, we will be controlled by our lack of control.
That's right.
So yeah, it sends you just into this tailspin. I know that I've experienced it before when I'm trying to control things that
Yeah.
are just totally out of my purview. I just can't, right? Things like inflation or like market volatility. When we're trying to grasp onto these things and make them better, well, we can't. But focus on what you can do, right? This is part of being proactive, focusing on what you can do. We can't control inflation, but we can plan for rising
But you can't
inflation.
control your asset allocation.
We can control how we're positioned, the amount and the type of risk that we're willing to take. Those
That's
are
right.
things that we can control and volatile
Jay, go ahead.
sometimes.
I can see you
Do
doing.
you have a proactive plan? That's what I want to ask everyone listening right now. If you do not have a proactive plan, this book and a consultation with us will help you get that proactive plan. We would love to meet with you and your family and put a plan and a strategy together that can create something that we call a SWAN plan. You sleep well at night. Go ahead and pick up a copy of this book by calling the number or placing the QR code on the phone, and we would love to schedule a complimentary consultation for your proactive plan.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week.